Every person in London was afraid.
What was all that about?
As police officers were brutally hunted down by an anonymous serial killer. This drained him emotionally, but then he came up with a perfect plan to remove veil from dead eyes of the killer on that particular night. Welcome back to Paramount Recapped. I don't have many subscribers, but your single comment is a ray of hope to motivate me. So, we kick off with Detective Tom, who's snoozing on his couch like he's in the middle of a Netflix binge. When he finally gets up, he looks out the window and sees some guys trying to steal a car. Instead of calling for backup like any normal person might, Tom just rolls out and decides, I'll handle this myself. Spoiler alert, those thieves have a really bad day. Tom dishes out an epic beatdown, and for good measure, threatens to finish the job if he sees them again. Yep, just your average morning workout, I guess. But here's where things get messy. The next day, the media catches wind of this and flips the script. Suddenly, Tom's the villain, accused of beating up some innocent boys. You know the type, those angelic car thieves. Now the whole department's under fire, and Tom's bosses are sweating bullets. Their solution? Send him to counseling. Of course, Tom's about as open to therapy as a cat is to taking a bath. He lights up a cigarette during the session, classy, and when the counselor asks him to put it out, Tom basically says, I'll put you out if you don't back off. Safe to say, Tom's not getting a gold star for progress that day.
Sure, I'll do something truly reckless.
Next, we meet Elizabeth, a constable who's been working undercover. And let's just say, things got a little too undercover. She had to pretend to be part of a drug-dealing crew, which meant, yep, taking the drugs too. Unsurprisingly, that didn't go well, and she ended up in rehab. After coming back and failing the sergeant test, she got demoted to constable. Talk about a bad break. Tom tries to cheer her up, but let's face it, Tom's pep talks are about as comforting as a brick through a window. Later, Tom heads to see Chief Inspector Bruce Roberts, who's just lost his wife. They go to the morgue to see her, and Bruce is understandably wrecked. Tom, trying to be a good friend, takes Bruce out for a drink. Nothing like a pint to drown your sorrows, right? Tom's doing his best to lighten the mood, which is kind of like trying to make a funeral feel like a birthday party. Good luck with that, buddy. Then things go from bad to worse. A female officer gets shot while walking down the street, and Tom rushes to the scene. When asked about Bruce, Tom says he's still grieving his wife and won't be back for a while. But with a cop killer on the loose, they can't exactly sit around waiting. So they bring in Porter Nash, a temporary inspector, and surprise, surprise, the other officers aren't thrilled. Why? Well, apparently Porter's gay, and apparently that's a big deal to them. Look guys, he's here to catch a killer, not organize a pride parade. Despite the cold welcome, Tom and Porter actually hit it off, which is kind of like finding out Batman and Superman are best buds after all those fights. Who knew? Meanwhile, Elizabeth gets a visit from a young gang member named Metal. Side note, if you're going to choose a gang nickname, why Metal? Is he super into heavy metal? Maybe he collects scrap metal? Anyway, Metal's worried his gang might have killed someone and asks Elizabeth for help. She agrees, but warns him this is the last time she's bailing him out. Honestly, she sounds more like an exasperated mom telling her kid to clean his room for the 50th time. Elizabeth fills Tom in on the situation, and he suggests she talks to Craig. Enter Detective Inspector Craig Stokes, who offers to help, but only if Elizabeth agrees to go on a date with him. Because what's more romantic than blackmail? You help me catch a murderer, I'll buy you dinner. Meanwhile, a reporter gets a call from a guy named Barry, who casually admits to being the cop killer. Barry's all, yeah, I did it, but don't worry, I've got more cops on my list. So, Barry's clearly the kind of guy who sees world domination as a side hustle. While they're chatting, Barry shoots another cop just to prove he's serious, then tells the reporter he's got 8 more officers on his hit list. I mean, maybe start with a hobby like yoga. Barry? The news spreads fast, and Porter checks in with Tom, asking if he's really the guy with the tough guy reputation. Tom's like, yep, that's me. Then they get word that yet another officer has been killed. It's game on. They start rounding up every criminal in the city, telling their informants to stay sharp because Barry's not messing around. And that's when things really start heating up. Tom catches up with one of his street informants, Radner, hoping to dig up some new leads. Radner points him and Porter towards a guy named Barry Weiss, who apparently bragged about setting a police dog on fire for kicks. Lovely guy, right? Tom and Porter swing by Barry's place, but they don't find any solid proof right away. When Barry opens the door and sees them, he's thrown off for a second, but being a sly killer, he plays it cool. Tom instantly recognizes Barry as the guy he roughed up in a bar fight last year, and takes a moment to mock him before leaving with Porter. Barry, however, knows the heat's on him. He quickly grabs his stuff and heads out to stash it somewhere safe. But Radner, ever the sneaky informant, tails him and finds where Barry hides his little collection. Radner decides to do some solo detective work and eventually finds an abandoned car car that's basically Barry's trophy case of his crimes, confirming Weiss is the killer they've been after. Meanwhile, Bruce is at a liquor store picking up some booze when he has a light bulb moment. He realizes he's on a path of self-destruction and decides to pull himself together, reporting back to the station to get back on the job. As soon as Bruce leaves, Barry is trailing him, clearly targeting him next. Barry follows Bruce home, knocks on the door, and attacks him as soon as he opens it. Bruce fights back, grabbing a hammer, but Barry manages to take it from him and uses it to kill Bruce brutally. Afterward, Barry casually watches TV in Bruce's house, steals his uniform, and leaves. Barry's not done though. He calls up the reporter again and brags about killing Bruce, making sure the media will cover it. He also demands the reporter call him Blitz in the papers because, of course, every killer needs a flashy nickname. Tom is devastated when he hears about Bruce's death. Bruce was a close friend, after all. Meanwhile, Barry packs up all his belongings into a car, but Radnor's still shadowing him, keeping tabs on everything. Radnor gets bold and contacts the same reporter Barry called. He offers to sell him the scoop on Barry for a cool $50,000, and the reporter agrees. They meet at a parking lot, where Radnor shows him all of Barry's hidden stuff. The reporter is skeptical, but convinced enough when he sees Bruce's uniform. They strike a deal, but what neither of them realizes is that Barry has been watching the whole thing from the shadows. Barry, not one to miss an opportunity, waits until Radnor goes to the bathroom at the bar. He follows him in, and when Radnor sees him, he starts trembling, begging for his life, insisting he hasn't given up Barry's name yet. But mercy isn't exactly in Barry's vocabulary. He kills Radnor, snatches the $50,000, and slips away. The reporter alerts the police about the car, but by the time they check it out, it's empty. Tom and another cop soon figure out that all of Blitz's victims were police officers who had arrested Barry in the past, which puts Elizabeth next on the hit list. After coming back from a date with Stokes, Elizabeth is attacked by Barry. Metal, her young gang contact, jumps in to save her, but tragically dies in the struggle. Right as Barry's about to finish Elizabeth off, the police arrive, forcing him to flee. Tom and Porter decide it's time to flush Barry out and release his picture to the media. This triggers a citywide manhunt, leading to a long chase that finally results in Barry's capture. But here's the problem. There's no concrete evidence to pin the murders on him. After 48 hours of interrogation and no confession, the police are forced to let Barry walk free. Fed up, Tom and Porter come up with a risky plan. They know Barry will want revenge on Tom for their past altercation, so they bait him. Barry crashes the funeral of Chief Inspector Bruce, disguised in Bruce's stolen police uniform. Tom slips out during the service, knowing Barry will follow. When they reach the top of a parking garage, Tom reveals that he and Porter had swapped places. Surprised, Barry is overpowered by Tom, who takes his gun and beats him down. Knowing they'll never have enough evidence to convict Barry legally, Tom comes up with a solution. Barry's dressed as a cop, and Tom has his gun. They'll make it look like Barry was just another victim of Blitz. Without hesitation, Tom shoots Barry dead. Porter helps cover up the evidence, ensuring their story holds. After the dust settles, Tom still has one last score to settle with the reporter who dragged his name and the police department through the mud. In true Tom fashion, he lets the dogs loose on the guy as a thank you for all the bad press.